Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, welcome at the AD Archaeological Museum. On behalf of the Society of the Friends of the Museum, the Sheikh Zayed Chair of Arabic and Islamic Studies, I have the pleasure of welcoming Professor Almudena Ariza Armada. Professor Armada holds a BA and MA in Medieval History, Postgraduate Studies and Numismatics, and her PhD in Arabic and Islamic Studies from the Complutense University of Madrid. Since January 2000, she has taught courses, delivered lectures, and led academic trips to Spain and Morocco. And she's currently teaching at Stanford University, New York University, and the University of San Diego. She's also a collaborating professor at Comillas Pontifical University since 2016. At these universities, she teaches courses on al-Andalus, Spain and Islam, contemporary Islam, Sepharad, and the cultural history of Spain. She is accredited in Spain by INECA. She has participated in several research projects and has received numerous grants and scholarships from Spanish, European, and American institutions, as well as several awards, both for research, like the Extraordinary Doctorate Award of the Complutense University of Madrid and the Javier Conde Harriga Award of the Spanish Numismatic Association, and the Teaching Award of the Center of Humanities of the New York University and Terman Award Advisor of Stanford University. She's a member of several international editorial boards, 7 in total. I'm not going to cite them all. Her research is focused mainly on Islamic numismatic, mostly the Andalusi and North African ones, a subject on which she has published numerous papers, over 34, book chapters, and books. The last one, From Barcelona to Oran, las emisiones monetales a nombre de los califas Hamudíes del Andalus, won the prize of the Spanish Numismatic Association. Her main research lines are Islamic iconography and monetary symbology, as well as the analysis of the image of power and legitimacy in the currency. This work includes the comparative study of numismatic and other sources, as well as the study of numismatic collections from museums, private collections, and archaeological excavations. Her other research focus, the history of al-Andalus, has resulted in a new monography, Breve Historia de los Reinos de Taifas, in press in 2025. On the other hand, she has also participated in numerous national and international conferences. She has professional experience as an expert advisor in Islamic numismatics, is a member of numerous scientific and professional associations in Spain and the United States, and was nominated this year as an honorary member of the Numismatic Association NUMUS. Before I invite Professor Armada to take the floor, please note that following the lecture, you are invited to visit the exhibition that was curated by Professor Jacques Norpetlian at the museum. It offers a visual context to the lecture through selected pieces from our coin collection. A reception will follow. And please, I remind you to keep your phones in silent mode. Thank you. Professor Armada, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thank the American University of Beirut Archaeological Museum and his director, and Sheikh Zayed's Chair for Arabic and Islamic Studies, and especially to Bilal Fali for inviting me to give this talk. And of course, thank you all for attending this talk. It's a pleasure, it's an honor for me to be here in this amazing city that I am. It's a true pleasure for me to be here. Okay, as usually known, sorry. Okay. As usually known, when Islam arrived in the Iberian Peninsula in 711, the newly conquered territory, Al-Andalus, became a part of the Umayyad Caliphate of Damascus. Consequently, the Andalusi coinage was a subject from the outset to Eastern influences or the dynamics in implementing the Umayyad monetary system in Al-Andalus. The fact that they followed Eastern parameters is in itself an element of legitimacy. In 138-756, the first significant change took place when Abderrahman I arrived in Al-Andalus, fleeing the persecution of the Abbasids, and took power in the territory. This marked the independence of Al-Andalus, rejecting the recognition of the new Abbasid Caliphate of Baghdad. From this moment, it was necessary to have an element that legitimized the issues of the new Andalusi independent emirate. Despite the extinction of the dynasty in the east, and despite the existence of a new Eastern Caliphate, Abderrahman I maintained the Umayyad monetary model as a symbol of dynastic vindication and as a clear challenge to the new Abbasid Caliphate. It also announced that the Umayyad power had been preserved in the Iberian Peninsula against the Christian powers of the north and against the power of Charles the Great, who attempted to take Andalusi territories. In this way, the issues of the Umayyad independent emirate of Al-Andalus were exactly as the previous ones and as those of the Eastern Umayyads, changing only the name of the mint, which was Al-Andalus, as you can see in the image. Remember that the Umayyad coinage was characterized by the use of the standard formula of specimen, mint, and year, and by having only religious legends, not political ones. That is to say, the Shahada in the overs and the Surah 112 and the Surah 933 in the reverse, as you can see in this image. However, Abderrahman I and the following emirs only minted dirhams. Rule out other reasons such as the impossibility of accessing the gold. This might have been due to political reasons. According to the well-known policy of prudence of this first emir, as he was not proclaimed caliph and thus renouncing the prerogative of mint gold coins. During the independent emirate, only a monetary reform regarding the legends was made. Different names related to the engravers or mint masters were struck in dirhams from the Hijra year 219, 834-35 of the Common Era, during the emirate of Abderrahman II. Once again, novelties came from the East, where this practice has already been introduced, and the reform was carried out by the emir or by an emir whose government was characterized by the implementation of Eastern influences in Andalusi court. In the 4th, 10th century, Al-Andalus became a caliphate. The 8th emir of Al-Andalus, Abderrahman III, was proclaimed caliph in 316-929, taking the caliphal title of Amir al-Mu'minin and the laqab al-Nasr li-Din Allah, confronting Fatimids, the new Shia caliphate that had risen in North Africa 20 years before. Thus, the Islamic world was divided into 3 great caliphates, and in this moment, coins became a primary material element of recognition of the sovereignty of each caliph and its legitimacy for the local dynasties of the various Islamic territories. How did Abdurrahman III legitimize his new status through coinage? The answer is by sending a clear message from the beginning, a symbolic expression of the new Andalusi power and his position vis-à-vis the other two caliph of Islam, the Abbasid and the Fatimids. To achieve this, the first step was to mint gold coins as a symbol of his caliphal power. Secondly, he reformed legends. In his first known issues, dirhams from 316-929, by the way, extremely rare and probably no more than 3 such coins are known, he maintained the same central legends of the overs and rivers as those of the emiral issues, as an element of continuity with the previous period, but added his name and caliphal title of Emir of the Believers, as you can see in the image. Thus, he placed himself from the first moment on the same symbolic level as the other two caliphs, challenging them, while also asserting his Umayyad identity as a descendant of the Umayyad of Damascus. However, in less than 1 year, he completely reformed the coins, adopting the prevailing caliphal model in the Islamic land and laying the foundations of all later Andalusi caliphal coinage. On dinars and dirhams, we can see how he started following the Abbasid model of the double marginal legend, as you can see in these coins. In these very, very rare coins, the prophetic mission of Muhammad continues in the marginal interior legend. Here, no? Started the legend is here, no? The beginning of the profession of faith, and continuing in this point around the coin with the Surah 333. And also, we can find the same Quranic surah engraved on the Abbasid coins, the Surah 34:5, which is written as the exterior marginal legend. This model was removed from the year 318, only 1 year after, okay? And regarding the reverse, he eliminated the religious legend on the camp, the Surah 112, the symbol of the Umayyads, and engraved the title of Imam and his laqab or honorary title in its place. From the same year, 317, 929-30. In this way, the Andalusi caliphal typology was established. As you can see in the image, the central religious legends of the reverse disappeared definitely and was replaced by political ones, both in dinars and dirhams. His challenge to the Shia Fatimid, introducing himself as Imam on coins, is especially important considering that the other Sunni Caliph of Islam, the Abbasids, never did so. Therefore, Abdurrahman III replied to the Fatimid universal caliphal vindication, reclaiming it for himself. In any case, the use of the title of Imam had enormous significance as it defined all later Andalusi caliphal coinage. From that moment on, all Caliph of al-Andalus, first the Umayyad and after the Hammadids, appeared as imams on coins. Another image of power and legitimacy of the Caliphate of Al-Andalus came with the establishment of a new mint, Medina Zara. 20 years after of his caliphal proclamation, Abderrahman III moved the mint from Cordoba to his Palatine city, Medina Zara, founded almost 10 years before, and replaced the name of the mint Al-Andalus, which that of his new city, which will be the Andalusi mint for the next 30 years, including the end of his caliphate and that of his successor, Al-Hakam II. The apparently simple change in the name of the mint became another significant expression of using coinage as an ideological and propagandistic instrument. Abderrahman III also responded to the Fatimids, whose first caliph, Ubayd al-Mahdi Billah, had built his own city, giving it his name, Al-Mahdiya, and had moved the mint there from Al-Qayrawan, where the first Fatimid coins had been struck. At the end of the caliphate, a significant milestone in using coinage as an element of legitimacy took place. The third caliph of Cordoba, the Wake Hisham II, in 393, 1002-1003, reintroduced the title of Hajib, the equivalent to a prime minister, more or less, on coins. It had appeared firstly in the year 357 in the issues of his father Al-Hakam II, being the powerful minister Jafar al-Siklabi, the first to appear as such. It was a clear recognition of the power of the most powerful character in Al-Andalus at the time, but a punctual and factual fact. Because of the 18 typologies minted, his name and title only appear in a unique one. The difference, the great difference, is that Hisham II, his son, reintroduced the title on coins 34 years later, being in a very weak situation, and he did it systematically, both in Al-Andalus and in the north of Africa. In my opinion, this is an evidence of the weak caliphal power facing the strength of the political role of his minister and responding to his need for support who recognized his legitimacy. And perhaps the most interesting is that from this moment, the title became an element of legitimation for the later Taifa kingdoms. Indeed, in 399, 1009, a civil war began in Al-Andalus, whose main political consequences were the division of Al-Andalus into independent territories governed by the Taifa kings, Muluk al-Tawaif. Yes, Tawaif, thank you. And the caliphate, the second consequence was the disappearance of the caliphate disappearance. During the 46 years following the coup d'etat by Muhammad al-Mahdi, which initiated the war, until the disappearance of the last caliph of Al-Andalus, numerous caliphal proclamations took place. 11 Umayyads and 12 Hammudids became caliph and fought among themselves for power in Al-Andalus. Some of them controlled Cordoba more than once, while other rulers for less than one day. Even there came for be 4 caliphs at the same time. Okay? The use of coinage as an expression of legitimacy from the very beginning shows us how grave the situation was and how it was perceived as such. It was the case of Suleiman al-Mustain, who took away the power from Muhammad al-Mahdi, the one who had carried out the coup d'etat. In this critical moment of the civil war, which was devastating Al-Andalus, Suleiman needed to reinforce his legitimacy given the unpopularity of designating his son as heir, which questioned not only his own power as caliph, but also the continuity of his lineage. So he resorted to introduce the name and title of heir, Wali al-Ahd, on coinage as a clear element of legitimacy and dynastic claim from the first time in Al-Andalus. With this, Suleiman sent a clear message to all his rivals. And once again, it was looked to the east. The title had already been introduced for the first time in Islamic coinage by the Abbasid Caliph of Baghdad, Harun al-Rashid. Regarding the titles, a turning point had taken place because this legitimizing measure became a common practice among the Hammadid caliphs. This is not surprising because they fought during the first half of the 5th, 11th century to be recognized as the legitimate caliph in the entire Al-Andalus. After then, the title would no longer be used on Andalusi coins. Another element of legitimacy introduced during the great instability of the Fitna period, the civil war period, was engraving the names of important political leaders. Before the Fitna, proper names had appeared sporadically during the period of the Emirate, as I have mentioned, and more regularly, although not systematically, during the Umayyad Caliphate. This name had been identified with those of the Mind Masters. However, during the civil war, this changed. Caliph Suleiman, known as the Caliph of the Berbers, needed to reinforce his legitimacy and maintain the support of the Berber tribe in order to preserve his caliphate in Cordoba. In order to do it, we know from Arabic textual sources that Suleiman rewarded the Berbers from their support in the war, which the government of various territories of Al-Andalus, which would became the so-called Berber taifas. On one hand, we found several names that appear each year in the Suleiman issues, as you can see in this image, okay? Making it impossible for this name to correspond to Mind Master as a previous periods. However, some of these names, have been identified as some of these Berber leaders, as for example, the case of the name Ibrahim in this coin. And on the other hand, we know that at least from the year 399, 1009, the minting of dinars and dirhams in the name of the caliph was a prerogative that he granted to certain eminent leaders of the province in exchange for the invocation in the khutbah in his favor. In other words, Suleiman permitted them to engrave their names on coins. And this recourse of legitimation also had as reference the Eastern models. It was a similar process to that one which took place at the Abbasid court, the process of ennoblement that included the appearance of the name on coins, being named by the kunya, receiving food and drink for the caliph table, or being able to wear honorary and ceremonial attire. The appearance of the names of the Taifa kings became usual during the 5th, 11th century and legitimized both the caliphs, who were thus recognized as such, as also the Taifa kings themselves. Another interesting element of legitimation was introduced on coins also in the first half of the 5th, 11th century by the dynastic branch of Ali bin Hammud, the first Hammadid caliph of Al-Andalus. They were direct descendants of Prophet Muhammad, and the Arabic textual sources clearly say that they were Shia Muslims. It's to say, a Shia dynasty governing over a majority Sunni community. So Ali, his son Yahya, and his grandson Idris II introduced several legitimizing graphic elements on coins linked to Shia connotations and a propitiatory value, which clearly differentiated this family branch from the rest of the dynasty branches that fought among themselves for power in Al-Andalus. The first element that we found on coins of Ali bin Hammud is the fish symbol, which we can consider a symbolic reference to the Prophet Moses or Ali ibn Abi Talib, which legitimized the caliph as a wise and just governor, as his symbolic references were. The second is the proliferation of stars. Although stars are linked to the Umayyad tradition, the symbol acquired a new connotation in connection with Shia because, according to a hadith of the Prophet Muhammad, the stars had a protective value over the members of the house of the Prophet. The Hammadid Caliph, as descendant of the sons of Fatima, was thus legitimized. On the coins, don't worry, on the coins of his son Yahya, in addition to the stars, we found the octagram framing the central legends, which I'm not, okay, sorry. As I am telling you, we found the octagram framing the central legends, which can be related to the Rub al-Hizb. Thus, it will be make a symbolic reference to the party of God, to which the Hammadid belonged as descendant of the Prophet Muhammad. In another type of Yahya, we can also find isolated letters, Waw and Ha, which, once other possibilities has been ruled out, could represent numbers. Their numerical value will be 6 and 8, respectively, which are obviously connected with the hexagram and the octagram. After Yahya, in the issues of his son Idris II, the octagram was also used, and the hexagon was introduced framing the central legends, as you can see in this coin. And on the coins of Idris II, we found the use of the hexagram or seal of Solomon, a monetary symbol whose origin, both in the East and in the Maghreb, had a strong pro-Ali connotation. The symbolic reference to the Prophet Solomon had a magical and protective quality and legitimized the caliph as a wise and just caliph or governor, as was the King Prophet himself. When there were no caliph to be recognized in Al-Andalus during the second half of the 5th, 11th century, the elements of legitimacy changed. On the one hand, the engraving on coins of the honorary titles of the Taifa kings proliferated. On the other hand, they started to mention a generic caliph, Abdallah, servant of God. As you can see, for example, in this dinar of Al-Mutamid, the king of the Taifa kingdom of Seville. Finally, at the end of the Taifa period, when the Almoravid power in Al-Andalus was inevitable, the Taifa king started to strike coinage following the Almoravid model. Looking for legitimation, as you can see in this image of the Almoravid style dirham of the Emir of the Taifa of Badajoz, Umar al-Mutawakkil. During the 6th, 12th centuries, during the 6th, 12th century and 7th, 13th centuries, the Al-Andalus became a part of the Almoravid and Almohad empires. So the coinage was Almoravid and later Almohad. Remember that the Almoravids legitimized themselves by mentioning the Abbasid Caliph of Baghdad, using minor titles such as Amir or Amir al-Muslimin, as you can see in this coin, and against the Almohad threat added the title of Al-Abbasi to avoid any doubt about the caliph they recognized, and introduced pious expressions related to Prophet Muhammad and formulas for asking God for help, especially in times of big tension. And the Almohads reformed the monetary system, affecting not only the metrology, but also calligraphy and the shape of the coins. Minted round dirham with an inscribed square and square dirhams. And of course, the legends were reformed. In the legends, we can see the axis of the Almohad doctrine. It's to say, the reference to Al-Mahdi ibn Tumart as Imam of the community and the reaffirmation of the divine oneness, both in dinars and in dirhams. As you can see in this image from dirham from Tunisia. However, when local dynasties tried to confront these North African powers, new legitimatory elements were introduced into Andalusi coinage. Perhaps the most interesting cases can be the case of Murcia, where even Mardanis in the period between Almoravid and Almohad, the second taifas, and even Hud in the post-Almohad period stood out. during the period of the third Taifas. Muhammad ben Saad ibn Mardanis of Murcia, known by the Christian as the Wolf King, due to his cunning and ability to escape difficult situations, introduced formulas asking God for help, which played a legitimizing role in a moment of great instability. As you can see in this image, in orange on the obverse, orange or yellow, more or less, this kind of pious expression became common later in the coinage of the Nasrid Kingdom of Granada. Or also we can find on coins that follow the Almoravid standards typical Almohad legends, such as Al-Amr Allah in orange in the reverse of these coins, or all power or command belong to God alone in this another coinage, also in orange. Regarding the case of Ibn Hud of Murcia in the 13th century, he became independent from Almohad power and was recognized as emir in Al-Andalus by the Abbasid Caliph of Baghdad. In his ambition to be the emir of the entire Al-Andalus, he created a currency with his own identity, in which we can appreciate several legitimizing recourses. On the one hand, he rejected the Almohad model. Remember dinars with an inscribed square and square dirhams, which was the dominant typology in the currency of all contemporary dynasties through the Mediterranean area. And on the other hand, he emphasized the fact that he has received his legitimacy from the Caliph of Baghdad. Thus, he not only mentions a generic Caliph Abdallah, servant of God, or make reference to the dynasty, engraving the word Al-Abbasi, as had been done before. But he took one more step by including all his titles, Al-Khalifa al-Abbasi, Amir al-Mu'minin, Imam al-Ummah, as you can read in green in the image. And this is engraved in the marginal legend of the obverse of the coinage, of the coins. And finally, he looked for religious legitimacy by resorting to a Quranic legend, which is the Surah 65:3, a central legend of the reverse, which appears for the first time in Andalusi coins, as you can see in the image. Okay. The unique of the first Taifas kingdoms that survived the Christian conquest in the 7th, 13th century was the Nasrid Kingdom of Granada. Al-Andalus was reduced to the small kingdom of Granada, and facing the Christian threat represented by the larger kingdom of Castile, the first emir, Muhammad ibn Nasr, asked the Hafsid of Tunisia for help. And consequently, his first issues followed the Almohad model as the Hafsids themselves. But from the beginning, we can find the main image of Nasrid power, his dynastic motto, both in dinars and like this, and in dirhams, in a very special place in the coin. Wala galip lala. okay? And it is interesting that in the case of dirhams, no, as I am telling you, is engraved in the overs of the coin, below the Shahada, no? So in a very, very important space in the coin, a protagonist space. The first emir of Granada soon reformed the coinage, maintaining the Almohad model in order to make his coins competitive in the international commerce, introduced specific elements that defined the Nasrid coins during the entire period and show us the limit of his power and his critical situation because of the military pressure from Christian kingdoms of the north. It's to say, because they didn't recognize any caliph, the title of imam, and any kind of mention to the caliphate disappeared from Nasrid coins, and introduced pious sentence and 2 new Quranic verses, which is an evidence of how they looked for religious legitimacy and how much they needed help. These are the Surah 326 here in this side of the image, and the Surah 200. To finish, we can see the use of the Surah 200 in dinars of the last Nasrid king, Muhammad XII, named Boabdil by the Christians, on the overs of the coin, and on the reverse, the characteristic repetition of the dynastic motto and their dynastic vindication formula. It is to say, instead of mentioning the name of the heir or using the caliphal recourse to engrave the title of heir, Waliallah, they introduced the genealogy of the emir, his nasab, as you can see, no, in the reverse, in the central legend of the reverse, which became their primary element of political legitimation. We have to take into account that their legitimacy was based on genealogy, a genealogy that they traced back to the Banu Hadraj, one of the tribes from Medina that supported Prophet Muhammad, no? And the first Muslim, no? One of the helpers, no? Specifically from Sa'ad bin Ubadah, who had been elected caliph by the helpers at the death of Prophet Muhammad, and although the attempt did not succeed, Sa'ad continued to consider himself head of the Muslim community for the rest of his life. This genealogy allowed the Nasrid to consider themselves descendants of the Rashidun Caliph, and consequently to be even more legitimized than the Umayyads, while also representing themselves as defenders of Islam. For all these reasons, the emirs of the Nasrid dynasty began using minor titles such as Sultan or Amir al-Muslimin, but the last ones also used the titles of Khalifat al-Rahman or Khalifat Allah. However, what is particularly interesting is that they never appear on coins with these titles. They use this title in their private life, in the walls of the private rooms of the Alhambra, for example. In this way, they avoid they avoid provoking a conflict with other Muslim powers who also consider themselves caliph, such as the Marinid from the north of Africa, the Banu Marin. And to finish, in dirhams, you can see in this image the evolution of the dirhams over time and how the title of emir disappeared and the name of Granada and the dynastic motto of the dynasty gained prominence. And thank you very much for hearing me. If you have any question, have been a pleasure.
Would like to have more details about the coins that the Christian kings had at that time, 12th century, let's say, because I read somewhere, and it's a source that is reliable, that King Alfonso VI, his coins were in Arabic, and his capital was Toledo. So if you could give me more details about this, please.
This is a very, very interesting question, and it's a very, very interesting topic. I love it. Because we have to take into account that at the beginning, the Christian kingdom didn't have his own coins, okay? So they used the Andalusi coinage, okay? In gold and in silver, no? The silver and gold coins. And the Christian didn't have his own coins until the conquest of Toledo in the 11th century, okay? And when Alfonso VI conquered the city, during the first years, struck coins in Arabic, probably to be used by the Muslims that stay in the city, and was a kind of coins that can be used by the Muslim and although by the Christian, because the Christian was using this kind of coins, the Andalusi coin also. So probably was a prerogative that give to the Muslim community, to the city, okay? And after, and it's very, very interesting also that in this same period, as the Christian haven't his own coinage, imitated the Andalusi gold coin. Is the name Mancusos. The Mancus, which all of you know better than me, no, is the engraving, no, means engraved, no? Yes, because is the name used by the Christian because the coinage is with a text, no? It's all written. So these Mancusos or Mancus, no, were struck by the Count of Barcelona and surely also by the Count of Castile, imitating the coins from the dinars from the Umayyads, the last Umayyads, and the Hammudid Caliph. And some of them has the name of the count, are bilingual, or the name, another typology, had the name of the Jewish minter that struck the coins, bonhomme, okay? So are very, very interesting coins. And also in the 13th century, Alfonso VIII of Castile imitated also the gold coins from Al-Andalus, struck another very, very interesting coins, which have the same metrology of the Andalusi coins because it's the most prestigious coinage in the Mediterranean Sea at that moment. And in these coins, he wrote all legends in Arabic, but answering the Islamic legends. So where the Islamic legend said has the profession of faith, they say that the Imam of the, or say the Imam mentioned the Caliph, he said that the Imam of the community is the Pope of Rome, for example. Or where appeared the 933 verse of the Quran, in which said that the true religion is Islam, instead, and speak about opposite, no? The idea of the polytheism or the Christian Trinity. He wrote in Arabic that the true religion is the Catholic one, and who was not baptized was not entering the heaven, no, in the paradise, no. So it's another very, very interesting coins struck in Arabic by the Christian responding. Thanks for the question, because I love it.
Just a word, please. What is the meaning of Maravedis? I don't know if I pronounce it.
This
But,
came from Almoravids coins, from the Almoravids, because this is the name that given to this coin, no, that answer yes, and came from this because it's an imitation from the Almoravid coins, from Almoravitun, no, from the Maravid. This is the reason. Thanks for the question.
From the 10th to the 14th century, we notice, and is it both? Stereophonic? Okay. So from the 10th towards the 14th century, we notice an evolution in refinement in the coins. They become more readable, more complex, and more precise on two scales. The first one is the precision of calligraphy itself. It's more regular and more readable. And the second one is the quality of the relief in the impression of the coin. Was there an evolution in the technique of producing the coins?
Thanks for the question. It's a very, very interesting question also. Really, the technique was exactly the same during the entire period. Regarding the clarity for read the coins, the calligraphy, or the volume, is depend. For me, the question is only the fact that the Neshi calligraphy is more understable than the Kufic one. No? So for this reason, we have the feeling that are more understable the coins of the 15th century than the coins of the 10th century, for example, which are very, very complicated, and even in the 9th century are absolutely complicated to read it, no? Very difficult to read it. So I don't think that it's really because they are more, take more care in the moment to engrave the coins, okay? Thanks. But by the kind of calligraphy, really. And, but it's true because if you see the coinage of the Almoravids, for example, are very, very easy to read it, as in the case of the Almoravid, of the Nasrid ones. No? It's true that during the Nasrid kingdom, the art is the top, no? Have his top level in Al-Andalus, no? The Andalusi art arrived to his top level. And probably this have an influence in the coinage. But I think that is most important only the kind of calligraphy that we have in the coins. Is my personal opinion. I have answered all questions? Have I answered?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for this presentation. I'd like to ask you some questions to shed some light on some certain matters. One, did these various states had any control on the production of gold in terms of mines, that they're able to produce gold? Second, how did they make sure that there are no fake coins? Third, the coins that are in circulation, definitely some of them would go back to the treasury of the state in terms of taxes. They were reproducing new coins in the name of the new state, or continuing to use the old coins. I just wanted to have some.
I would like, don't forget any question. Okay, regarding the first one is about if there are a specific control of the gold coins, no, to extract the gold coins. There are a very, very high control by the state, okay? And there were the Sahib of Sika, no? The Lord of the Sika, of the Mint, has always a very, very pious Muslim who extract the coins, can be Christian and Jewish people, but who had the control of the workers have to be a very pious Muslim, and this regarding the mint, but the entire control of the production is a very high member of the government who had the control. And usually ministers or, for example, the most famous was Muhammad ibn Abi Amir, Al-Mansur, the Hajib of the Hajib of Hisham II, no? The most powerful character in times, no? And he was the master of the mint and was the most important, was the Hajib of the Caliph. So was to be the control of the production was very, very hard, and the production was very, very controlled, and by a very important member of the government. Okay. The second question, I think that was the mine, the production of gold. The production of what? The production of gold. Okay. I remember. Thank you. The economy of Al-Andalus as in the rest of the Dar al-Islam, of the Islamic lands, were very, very monetized. No, there are a lot of coins circulating in Al-Andalus by commerce and by the taxes, no, for pay the taxes. It was a very, very monetized system. And we only have an estimation of the volumes of production of the different means. And this is possible, has been possible in some periods only, because we don't have the evidence of the entire production of the different means in the different periods. The only element that we can use is the treasure and the monetary fines, no? That can show us, speak a little bit about the volumes of production, but really we can be sure. We have the mention in the Arabic sources, textual Arabic sources, about amounts of coins for pay, for example, the soldiers after a battle, or for compensated a minister, or for buy something. And taking in account both elements, we can suppose, but really it's very, very difficult to know the volumes of production of the different means. Perhaps, and this is my personal opinion, an element that had been not taken in account is in relationship with the volumes of production, is the number of typologies struck. And, but perhaps it's no decisive element, because, and is most related to the different mint who struck coins, no? So it's very difficult. And answering the third question is very interesting also, because thanks to the monetary fines and the treasures that we have found, the majority of them in a fortuitous way, we know, for example, that during the period of the governors, the first period of the history of Al-Andalus, the ancient name called the dependent emirate, because Al-Andalus depending from Damascus. In this period, the majority of the coins which circulated in Al-Andalus were dirhams, silver coins, and from the Oriental mints. The coins struck in Al-Andalus were a very, very small number, perhaps 10%, or not much more. During the independent emirate, predominated, because we're independent territory, and in this moment, predominating the Andalusi coins, the dirhams, because there are not Andalusi gold coins, and there are the foreign coins were very, very small number, no? Very, very rare. And we have the evidence that the coins struck by Abderrahman I were used until the beginning of the Caliphate, until the proclamation of Abderrahman III as Caliph. Because in the treasure, we found coins of all emir of the period, okay? But in the moment in which Al-Andalus became a caliphate, in the treasure, in the finds, disappear the coins of the emirate, and only have only have caliphal coins and sporadically coins from the Fatimids or even Abbasids, but very, very, very small number. So during the Emirate, circulated the coins from the first emir to the last one, but during the Caliphate, and in the finds of the Fitna period, in this moment there are a lot of fines because the people hold their money, obviously, no, for the war. In this period, we find also, yes, coinage from all caliph. Yes.
Thank you.
More questions? I invite you to, yes, Joe. One.
For reviewing all this. But let us take 1 dirham from the beginning of when you started till the end. My question is twofold. Does it contain the same amount of silver, and is it the same percentage, the same purity?
The silver or the gold? The silver.
Yes, or the silver or the gold. I mean, are we talking dirham to dirham? Is it the same amount and the same purity or not? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Regarding the gold, the quality was very, very high the entire history of Al-Andalus, except during the Taifa kingdoms period, and was close to the 98%. Okay, so very, very finest, no, very, very, very good quality. When there are not gold, they don't extract gold, but don't make worse the quality of the gold, okay? Except in the Taifa kingdoms, because in this moment, due to the civil war, and due to the Taifa kings were not legitimized by the Berber tribe of the north of Africa, which have the control of the route of the gold from the south, not from Sudan. They have a lot of problems for access to the gold. So they extract gold coins, small coins, a fraction, the majority that have been preserved have been fraction of gold coins, and I don't remember the name of, it's a very common name, but it's an alloy, no? Of gold and alloy. And with a very, very small quantity of gold. The fact you see the coins and is like silver. But regarding the silver was more or less the same problem. Was very good quality the majority of times in Al-Andalus, except during the civil war, the Taifa period. And in this case, we have coins of billion, with 10% of silver, no? And some of them seems to be false, no? Bronze coins, because there are not silver. Sorry.
I invite you to continue the conversation with Professor Armada at the museum. This way you get to see the exhibition and have some refreshments. Thank you very much.
Thank you.